Okay, it's been a day now. We've all hopefully had a chance to get some rest a little bit and look into some more information about Marvel's Wolverine. I mean, I've been just watching the trailer constantly on loop, but I did want to take a moment to talk about the PlayStation blog that was posted about Marvel's Wolverine shortly after the reveal that we got last night. You see, in the PlayStation blog, there's tons of information that hint towards what gameplay is going to be like in this game, and as well about some story elements and some of the additional characters that are going to show up in the game and whether or not they're going to be on Logan's side. We got lots to go over in today's video. If you're hyped for Marvel's Wolverine, hit that thumbs up button. Let's get the video here to 2,000 likes. And all right, let's jump into this. Big shout outs to Aaron Jason Espinoza over at Insomniac Games, the senior community manager, for writing up here this PlayStation blog. The first thing that I wanted to go over that it has written here, our Wolverine, aka Logan, is played by actor Liam McIntyre, who taps into the rage, pain, and nuances of this iconic character. In this story, he is on the hunt to uncover the secrets of a dark past that keeps eluding him. Unfortunately, in this world, he'll have to dig his claws deep to pull any shred of information that may lead to answers. Often, that means shredding into a relentless onslaught of enemies who aim to stop him by any means necessary. Fueled by unflinching resilience and rapid healing factor, Wolverine won't go down easy if it means keeping the mission on task. Some really well-written stuff there, but okay, yeah, in true Wolverine fashion, it looks like just the baseline information we have here about the story is that Wolverine can't remember some stuff about his past, and he's trying to uncover as much information about it as possible, and that leads him on the adventure that we're gonna go on in this game. And yes, it does mention once again what we already did get confirmed from yesterday's trailer and just overall reveal at the state of play. Liam McIntyre is playing Wolverine. I already said this in my breakdown, I said this in my reveal. I think it's a great choice, and everything that we have seen and heard in the trailer sounds and looks great to me. Shoutouts to Australians, they really get this character, man. But okay, really interesting thing that I read here in the PlayStation blog pertaining to the story. It says here, fans of the character of Wolverine may want to subscribe to Caboose because he's gonna provide you guys all the updates for this game. I gotta agree with the blog there, but okay, no, seriously, it says here, independence is often the way of Wolverine, although keen-eyed fans may have spotted some of the familiar faces he'll encounter on his journey, like the elusive Mystique or the brutish Omega Red. Some will fight alongside Logan against all odds, and others will unleash all-out attacks on our hero, such as the Reavers, one of our enemy factions, who will keep our hero's instincts on edge. Speaking of which, our trailer concludes with a prototype of an iconic yet menacing purple robot. Lots to unpack there. Okay, the first thing that it's mentioning, it talks about the two villains that we did see within the trailer. We saw Mystique, we know Mystique is going to be in the game, and then we also saw Omega Red, who is absolutely annihilating Logan. I mean, that bit from the trailer, I watch over and over. Omega Red looks so menacing, dude. But it does mention in the blog post that some of these characters that we did see will be on Wolverine's side. And, I did mention in my breakdown that that portion of the trailer where we got to see Mystique, it did end up having her taking out some other Reavers. So it could mean that Mystique might be playing for the good side in this game. Or maybe she's like somewhere in a gray area, but at the end of the day, she has to fight alongside Logan. It'll be interesting to see what Insomniac has in store for her character and how they're gonna tie that all into the overarching story for Logan. Obviously though, with Omega Red, I don't think that he's working alongside Wolverine in this game, at least based on that quick snippet we saw of him in the trailer. And yeah, when it comes to the Sentinel that we saw at the end of the trailer, that is a prototype. We now have that confirmed. It isn't one of the official ones that Bolivar Trask sends out there to hunt down some mutants. This is a prototype, and I think that means that, it's not going to be fully functioning, and it'll just make it so that it actually makes sense that Wolverine can kind of take on one of these things on his own. Not that he can't, but maybe they want to make it so that if we ever do get an X-Men game and we get the proper Sentinels, the ones that are fully functioning, that aren't prototypes, they'll be a bit more menacing. They'll be a bit more of a threat when it comes to that time. But all right, combat, gameplay. This is something that I know a lot of people, myself included, are really looking forward to. We got very quick snippets of gameplay within the trailer for Marvel's Wolverine yesterday during the state of play, but we obviously didn't get a full-on gameplay demo. That's something I imagine we're gonna get a little bit later down the line. But we are all wondering how things are going to work when it comes to gameplay, and we get some slight hints towards that within the PlayStation blog here. It mentions, Logan is the quintessential reluctant hero, haunted by the consequences of unleashing the beast within. Once the claws come out, Wolverine doesn't hold back. As a living weapon forged against his will, he'll use razor-sharp adamantium to dispatch enemies in untamed berserker rage to build momentum on the battlefield. He'll leave an impression on his foes with fast, fluid, and rapid attacks and techniques that'll dismember or break anyone who gets in his way. Wolverine might be distant, but he isn't afraid to get up close and personal when it counts. So yeah, you know, words like fast, fluid, and rapid, like having those little buzzwords, and when you're talking about the gameplay, you can kind of see what they're going for here when you actually see some of the combat in motion. One word though that I think they were missing was violent, because oh my God, there's some times in the trailer where I'm like, Wolverine, you got him, man. You got him. He's dead. But I am looking forward to seeing how Insomniac plans to mix it up with Wolverine's combat as the game progresses. Because one thing that always works so well with a character like Spider-Man is he has so many different ways he can engage in combat. With Wolverine, you don't really get a whole lot more than the 2 claws in his hands and slicing and dicing some people to pieces. So I'm interested to see what they're going to do to try and make things feel fresh and unique as the story goes on, as you get further into the game and unlock some upgrades or, you know, advance your skill trees if they're gonna have something like that in the game. But it also says something in the PlayStation blog there that he uses his untamed berserker rage to build momentum on the battlefield. So you gotta wonder, you know, is there some sort of abilities, or is there going to be special attacks and special takedowns like in the Spider-Man games after you build that momentum with that berserker rage? And we do know from what we saw in the trailer, and then as well what we saw in the behind the scenes breakdown for the game, that there's going to be a lot of different locations that we get to travel to within Marvel's Wolverine. That's obviously one of the more exciting aspects of this character, is that he's been around the world and there are stories for this character around the world, and it looks like the game is very much going to stay true to that. So it says here in the PlayStation blog that in this global thriller, Wolverine's search for answers will send him on perilous excursions to exotic locales, including the island nation of Madripoor, the frosted wilderness of Canada, and the narrow streets of Tokyo, all potential battlegrounds for the fierce, bloody, destructive action. And yeah, it looks like we actually did get to see little glimpses of all of these different locations throughout the main trailer for the game. We definitely got to see Madripoor, Wolverine sliding on top of that rooftop, while we got to see all those buildings ahead of him. That definitely was Madripoor. It says that, you know, one of the places we're going to be exploring is the narrow city streets of Tokyo. You know, I actually thought in my breakdown that this was Madripoor, but there is a glimpse of gameplay of Wolverine fighting some people in an alleyway. That is, from what it sounds like based on this description, Japan. I am very intrigued to see the kinds of characters and villains he potentially goes up against in his trip to Tokyo. And then we saw plenty of Canada. I am just glad as a Canadian myself to see that we're gonna be going to Canada in this game and that we're respecting the roots of Wolverine. And yeah, you know, I mentioned it in my breakdown, based on what Jeff Grubb has been saying, it does sound like a lot of these different locales are going to be little areas that we get to explore. They're not gonna be massive open worlds, but they will be sort of hub worlds that have some exploration to them. And then finally, I will leave you guys with this last little tidbit from the PlayStation blog. This is something that just generally gets me so excited for this game. Aaron says here in the blog that we aim to deliver the ultimate Wolverine fantasy built on Insomniac staples like fast, fluid, and ferocious combat, exhilarating action-packed set pieces, robust accessibility features, and a gripping story that taps into the core tenets of one of the most compelling comic book characters of all time. We're breaking new ground with Wolverine, yes, but our penchant for telling stories about heroes overcoming colossal odds is as strong as ever. We're eager to explore Logan's story with you and tap into his signature spin on heroism, which is much darker and more brutal than you might expect from Insomniac. That is what I like to hear. Now, okay, granted, the Spider-Man games isn't just like you frolicking through a field, okay? It isn't all sunshine and rainbows, all right? There is still plenty of things that happen in those Spider-Man games that are dark, that are sad even. But with Wolverine, I feel like you have to take that to another level, and it does sound like Insomniac accepts and understands that responsibility. And just based on the small little bits that we have seen, it looks like they are ready to deliver on exactly what they're promising here. I cannot wait to see more. I am so stoked. And with that being said, let me now kick it to you guys. Sound off with the thoughts in the comment section below. What do you think is going on in the story of this game? What do you think he is trying to uncover from his past. And also, what characters do you think that we're going to meet along the way that might be on Wolverine's side? You know, when they say something like that and it's an X-Men character, it just makes your mind go crazy, all right? With that being said, sound over the thoughts in the comments. I've been Caboose. I'll see you guys later.